I stood in my parents' living room, watching my older brother Derek announce that he was getting everything. All 8 rental houses in Florida, $3.2 million worth of property. And me? Nothing. The room erupted in cheers from his wife Courtney and our mother Linda. Derek's smug face turned toward me, waiting for my reaction. But I just smiled calmly and looked at my father Howard, whose eyes were fixed on the carpet. "Dad," I said quietly, cutting through the celebration. "You really don't know, do you?" His face went completely white. His hands started trembling. Derek's voice cracked through the silence like thunder. "Know what? Let me take you back so you understand how we got here. My name is Penny, and I grew up in suburban Tampa with my brother Derek, who is 3 years older than me. From the moment Derek was born, he was the golden child. The sun rose and set on that boy, at least in my parents' eyes. Our parents, Howard and Linda, spent 30 years building a small real estate empire. 8 rental properties scattered across Florida, from Tampa to Orlando to Jacksonville. They worked hard, saved every penny, and slowly accumulated these houses. By the time I was in high school, the rental income was enough to support our family comfortably. But comfortable didn't mean equal. Not in our house. I remember turning 16 and getting a used bicycle for my birthday. It was nice, sure, but 3 years earlier, Derek had gotten a brand new Ford truck, red, shiny, with all the bells and whistles. When I asked why the difference, my mother just said, "Derek needs reliable transportation for his future." Apparently, my future didn't require the same consideration. College was even worse. Derek went to Florida State University, and our parents paid for everything. Tuition, room and board, spending money, even spring break trips to Cancun. He majored in business administration and partied his way through 4 years, graduating with a 2.7 grade point average. When it was my turn, the conversation went differently. "Penny, we think you should consider community college first," my father said. "It's more affordable, and you can transfer later." I worked 2 jobs all through college, took out student loans, and graduated with a degree in business management from the University of Central Florida. I paid every cent myself. Did I complain? No. I learned to be independent. I learned the value of hard work, and honestly, I learned the real estate business inside and out because I worked as a property manager for a large real estate company right after graduation. I understood tenant laws, maintenance scheduling, rental markets, and property values better than most people twice my age. Derek, on the other hand, went through 3 failed businesses after college. First, it was a nightclub that closed in 8 months. Then a tech startup that never launched. Then a consulting company that had no clients. Every single venture was funded by our parents, who kept believing that their golden boy just needed one more chance. Eventually, Derek settled into a mediocre sales job at a furniture store. He made decent money, but spent more than he earned. He married Courtney 5 years ago, and she was even more materialistic than he was. They lived in a house they couldn't afford, drove leased luxury cars, and took elaborate vacations they put on credit cards. Meanwhile, I rented a modest apartment, drove a reliable Honda Civic, and saved my money. I also did something else. I helped my parents. Every single week for the past 7 years, I visited Howard and Linda. I helped them with property maintenance, coordinated repairs, dealt with difficult tenants, organized their paperwork, and made sure everything ran smoothly. I never asked for payment. I did it because I loved them, despite the obvious favoritism they'd always shown Derek. My parents were getting older. My mother, Linda, started showing signs of early dementia about 2 years ago. She'd forget conversations, repeat herself, sometimes not recognize where she was. My father, Howard, was exhausted from caring for her and managing the properties. He looked 10 years older than his 68 years. I tried to help more. I offered to take over more of the property management duties, but Howard always said, "We're managing fine, sweetheart. Don't worry about us." Then, about 6 months ago, things changed. Derek and Courtney started visiting more often. Suddenly, they were at my parents' house twice a week, sometimes more. They brought expensive gifts, wine baskets, gourmet food, new electronics. They talked constantly about family legacy and keeping everything together. At first, I thought maybe Derek was finally growing up, finally caring about our parents. But something felt off. During my weekly visits, my father seemed stressed, distant. sometimes confused in a way that went beyond normal aging. He'd start to tell me something, then stop mid-sentence, looking guilty. And my mother, in her increasingly confused state, would sometimes say strange things. "When did we decide all this?" she'd ask, looking bewildered. I thought Penny was getting something too, but when I asked what she meant, my father would quickly change the subject. 3 months ago, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. I was helping my father organize some paperwork in his home office when I saw a business card on his desk. Richard Mallory, attorney at law, estate planning specialist. I recognized that name. I'd seen it on some documents. I'd helped file for the properties years ago. But more importantly, I remembered reading about Richard Mallory in a legal newsletter at work. Had been involved in some questionable estate cases. "Dad," I said casually, picking up the card. "Are you and Mom updating your estate plan?" The look on his face told me everything. Guilt, nervousness, fear. "Just some routine things," he stammered. "Nothing for you to worry about." But I was worried, very worried, because my father was lying to me, and had never lied to me before. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Derek's increased visits, the expensive gifts, the constant talk about family legacy, and I thought about that lawyer's business card. Something was very wrong, and I needed to find out what. 2 months before the inheritance meeting that would change everything, I started investigating. I didn't want to believe my own brother would manipulate our aging parents, but I couldn't ignore the warning signs. So during my weekly visits, I paid closer attention. I listened more carefully, and I started looking for evidence. It came sooner than I expected. One afternoon, I was helping my mother organize some papers in her bedroom. She was having a good day, relatively clear-headed, and we were sorting through old bills and receipts. She opened a drawer in her nightstand and pulled out a folder. "Oh, I forgot this was here," she said, handing it to me. "Can you file this somewhere?" The folder was labeled Estate Planning in handwriting I didn't recognize. My heart started pounding. "Mom, what's this?" She looked confused. "I don't remember. Howard must have put it there." I opened the folder. Inside were drafted legal documents, pages and pages of them, and as I read, my hands started shaking. The documents detailed the complete transfer of all 8 rental properties to Derek. Every single one. The house in Tampa, the duplex in Orlando, the beach cottage in Clearwater, the townhouses in Jacksonville, all of them. Total value, approximately $3.2 million. And my name? Nowhere. Not on a single page. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, but I kept my face neutral. "Mom, can I take some photos of these? For my records." She nodded absently, already distracted by something else. I photographed every single page with my phone. Then I looked at the dates on the documents. The meetings had all been scheduled on weekdays, during business hours, when I was at work. And according to the notes, Derek and Courtney had been present at every single meeting. But there was something else that caught my attention. My father's signature on the documents looked wrong. It was shaky, uncertain, nothing like his usual bold, confident handwriting. It looked like the signature of someone under stress. Over the next few weeks, I kept finding things, little pieces of a horrible puzzle. I discovered that Derek had been telling our parents I was too busy with my career to help with the properties. That I'd told him I wasn't interested in family responsibilities. Complete lies. It never said anything remotely like that. I found brochures for assisted living facilities hidden in a magazine rack. Expensive ones, with glossy photos of smiling elderly people. Someone had circled the prices. When I asked my mother about them, she looked frightened. "Courtney showed those to me," she whispered. "She said Penny thought we should go into a home. She said you were worried about us." My throat tightened. "Mom, I never said that. I would never say that." She looked confused. "But Courtney said you did." I was furious, but I kept calm. Getting angry wouldn't help. I needed more information. I started researching property values online. Derek had been looking at real estate websites, checking the market value of our parents' properties. I found his search history on my father's computer when I was helping update some software. He wasn't just inheriting these properties. He was planning to sell them. All of them. Immediately. The family legacy he kept talking about? A lie. He wanted the cash. I also discovered had been isolating our parents from other family members. My father's sister, Aunt Rachel, lived in Georgia. She and my father had always been close, talking on the phone every week. But when I called her one day, she was upset. "Penny, I haven't talked to your father in 4 months," she said. "Every time I call, Derek answers and says he's too tired or too sick to talk. Is he okay?" "He's fine," I said. "Derek has been lying to you. Why would he do that?" "I'm going to find out." The final piece fell into place during a visit in late afternoon. It arrived earlier than usual and heard voices coming from the back patio. I walked quietly through the house and stood near the sliding glass door, hidden by the curtain. Derek was on his phone. Courtney sat beside him, painting her nails. "Once we get the properties, Dad and Mom can go into that facility," Derek said into the phone. "We'll have enough money to never work again. Penny's been cut out completely, just like we planned. She'll never see it coming." Courtney laughed. "Your sister is so naive. She actually thinks they love her." I pulled out my phone and started recording. Derek continued. "Mallory says the documents are solid. Even if Penny tries to challenge them, it'll take years in court. And by then, we'll have already sold everything and spent the money. She can't touch us." My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. But I kept recording until Derek ended his call. Then I quietly left through the front door, got in my car, and sat there for 20 minutes, trying to breathe. My own brother. My own family. They were planning to steal everything, throw our parents into a facility, and leave me with nothing. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated the invisible daughter, the one they'd ignored for so many years. The one who'd been quietly documenting everything. I wasn't going to let them win, not without a fight. The next morning, I called Marcus Chen. Wait, let me correct that. I called Marcus Sullivan. He was an elder law attorney I'd met 2 years ago through my property management work. One of our elderly clients had needed legal help with estate planning, and Marcus had handled it brilliantly, protecting the client from a manipulative nephew. I trusted him, and I needed help. We met at his office that afternoon. I brought everything. The photographs of the estate documents, the recording of Derek's phone conversation, notes from my visits, documentation of every lie Derek had told. Marcus listened to everything, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "Penny, this is serious. What your brother is doing could constitute elder abuse and undue influence. Can we stop it? We can try, but I need to examine everything more carefully." He pulled out the photographs of the estate documents and studied them. After several minutes, he looked up. "There are red flags all over these documents." "Like what?" "First, they were prepared very quickly. See these dates? The first meeting with the lawyer was only 6 weeks before the signing date. For an estate this complex, that's unusually fast. It suggests pressure." He pointed to another section. "Second, look at the notarization dates and times. This one was signed at 2:15 on a Tuesday afternoon. Do you know where your father was that day?" I checked my phone calendar, where I'd been keeping detailed notes. He had a cardiology appointment at 2 o'clock. I know because he asked me to reschedule it, but I told him heart health was important. Marcus nodded grimly. "So he signed a major estate document right after a stressful medical appointment. That's a vulnerability point." He flipped through more pages. "The language here is also unusually aggressive. See this clause? It specifically states that you are being intentionally excluded and have no claim to any property or assets. That kind of explicit exclusion is rare in family estate planning unless there's a serious conflict. But from what you've told me, you have an excellent relationship with your parents." "I do. Or I did. Before Derek poisoned them against me. That's the undue influence component. Your brother systematically isolated your parents, fed them false information about you, and pressured them into making decisions that benefit only him." Marcus leaned forward. "Penny, I think we have a strong case to challenge these documents. But I need you to do something. Anything. Document everything. Every visit with your parents, their mental states, any signs of confusion or pressure, conversations where they express doubt or confusion about the estate plan. Can you do that?" "Yes. Also, Florida is a one-party consent state for recording. That means you can legally record conversations where you're a participant. Start recording your visits. We need evidence of their true wishes and mental states. Over the next 6 weeks, I became a detective. I kept a detailed journal with dates, times, and observations. Every visit, I recorded on my phone, keeping it in my pocket. And the recordings were heartbreaking. During one visit, I gently asked my father about his plans for the properties. "Dad, have you and Mom thought about what will happen to the rental houses someday?" He looked confused. "I thought we were splitting things fairly between you and Derek. Is that what you want?" "Of course. You're both our children." Then his face clouded. "But Derek said you didn't want the properties. He said you told him they were too much trouble." "Dad, I never said that. I love those properties. I've been helping you manage them for years." He rubbed his face, looking exhausted. "I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm so tired, Penny. I can't think straight. My mother was even worse." In her confused state, she sometimes forgot about the estate planning entirely. "When did we decide to give everything to Derek?" she asked me one day. "I don't know, Mom." "When did you decide that?" "I don't remember deciding that at all." She looked frightened. "Did we decide that?" I also discovered that Derek had been systematically cutting off my parents' contact with other family members. When I finally got through to Aunt Rachel on the phone, she was furious. "Penny, I've been trying to reach your father for months. Every time I call, Derek answers and says he's not available. He told me your father didn't want to talk to me anymore." "That's not true, Aunt Rachel. Dad asks about you all the time." "That little snake. I'm driving down there." "No, wait. I have a better idea. There's going to be an inheritance meeting soon. Derek is planning to formalize everything. I need you there as a witness." "I'll be there." Meanwhile, Marcus was conducting his own investigation into Richard Mallory, the lawyer Derek had hired. What he found was damning. "Penny, Mallory was disciplined by the Florida bar 3 years ago. Marcus told me during one of our meetings. He was involved in several cases where elderly clients were pushed into estate transfers that heavily favored one family member over others. In multiple instances, the clients were medicated, confused, or under emotional duress when they signed documents. Can we use this? Absolutely. It establishes a pattern. This lawyer has a history of facilitating questionable estate transfers." Marcus smiled grimly. "I've already filed a complaint with the bar about his involvement in your parents' case. But more importantly, I'm preparing a legal challenge to the estate documents. However, I have a suggestion." "What?" "Let the inheritance meeting happen." I stared at him. "What? Why?" "Because we need Derek to reveal his full intentions in front of witnesses. Right now, he thinks he's won. He'll be arrogant, careless. He might say things that will help our case. And having witnesses present, especially your Aunt Rachel, will be crucial if this goes to court. But what if the documents get signed at that meeting? They won't be valid if we can prove undue influence. And we have enough evidence to challenge them. Trust me, Penny. Let Derek think he's won. Then, well, pull the rug out from under him." I took a deep breath. It was risky, but Marcus had never steered me wrong. "Okay, well, do it your way." 2 weeks later, I received the official invitation to the inheritance meeting. It was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at my parents' house. Derek had no idea what was coming. The morning of the meeting, I woke up with my stomach in knots. It barely slept, running through every possible scenario in my mind. What if this didn't work? What if Derek really did get away with everything? But then I remembered that phone conversation I'd recorded. Shell never see it coming. He was right. He would never see me coming. I dressed carefully. Professional, but not intimidating. A simple navy blue dress, minimal jewelry, my hair pulled back. I wanted to look calm and composed, even though inside I was terrified. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 2 o'clock. Several cars were already in the driveway. Derek's black Lexus, Courtney's white BMW, a silver Mercedes I didn't recognize, probably the lawyer, and a rental car with Georgia plates. Aunt Rachel. I smiled. The cavalry was here. I walked through the front door without knocking. It was still my parents' house, after all. The living room was set up like a formal meeting space. Chairs arranged in a semicircle, a table in front with neat stacks of documents. My father Howard sat in his recliner, looking small and tired. My mother Linda was on the couch, looking confused. Derek stood near the fireplace with Courtney. Both of them dressed like they were going to a celebration dinner. Derek wore an expensive suit. Courtney had on a cocktail dress and heels. And there was Aunt Rachel, sitting in a chair near the window, her arms crossed and her expression fierce. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. The lawyer, Richard Mallory, was a thin man in his 50s with slicked back hair and a briefcase that probably cost more than my car. He looked exactly like someone who'd been disciplined by the Florida bar. "Penny, you're here," Derek said, his voice dripping with false warmth. Come in. We're just about to start." I sat down in a chair near my father, placing my purse carefully at my feet. My phone was in my jacket pocket, already recording. "Now that everyone's here, let's begin," Mallory said, pulling out documents. "I'm Richard Mallory, and I've been working with Howard and Linda on their estate planning for the past few months." Derek shot me a triumphant look. Courtney squeezed his hand. Mallory continued. "Howard and Linda have made some important decisions about the distribution of their assets, specifically regarding their 8 rental properties located throughout Florida." My mother looked confused. My father stared at his hands. "After careful consideration and extensive discussions, Howard and Linda have decided to transfer all 8 rental properties, valued at approximately $3.2 million, entirely to their son, Derek." The room was silent for a moment. Then Courtney squealed. "Oh my God, baby! We did it!" She threw her arms around Derek. My mother started clapping weakly, looking around like she wasn't sure what she was supposed to do. Derek stood up dramatically, buttoning his suit jacket. "Mom, Dad, thank you," he said, his voice thick with fake emotion. "You don't know what this means to me. To us," he gestured to Courtney. "Well, honor your legacy. Well, take care of everything." Then he turned to me. His face changed. The false warmth disappeared, replaced by cold satisfaction. "Mom and Dad are giving all 8 rental houses in Florida to me. Penny, too bad." "You're getting nothing." Courtney giggled and pulled a bottle of champagne from a bag I hadn't noticed before. She started opening it, the cork popping with a festive sound that felt obscene. "To family loyalty," Derek announced, as Courtney poured champagne into plastic flutes Shed also brought. "To the people who show up, to the people who actually care." He handed glasses to Mallory, to our parents, to Courtney. He offered one to Aunt Rachel, who refused with a glare. He didn't offer one to me. The small group raised their glasses. Cheers. I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap. Every muscle in my body was tense. But I kept my face neutral. Derek wasn't done. He took a sip of champagne and then looked at me again. "You were always too independent, Penny. Too proud to ask for help. Too busy with your career to actually care about family. This is what happens when you don't prioritize what matters. Mom and Dad needed someone who would actually be there for them. That someone was me. Every word was a lie, every single word, and he knew it." Courtney chimed in, her voice sugar-sweet and poisonous. "It's nothing personal, Penny. It's just that Derek has always been more invested in family. Hez the one who visits, who cares, who sacrifices. You understand, right?" The room felt hostile. Even my mother wouldn't look at me, though I couldn't tell if it was guilt or confusion keeping her eyes down. I took a slow breath. This was the moment Marcus had prepared me for. Let Derek reveal himself. Let him be arrogant and careless. And boy, was he being careless. I looked directly at my father. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly on his armrest. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Dad," I said quietly, cutting through Derek's self-congratulation. The room went silent. "Dad," I repeated. "You really don't know, do you?" Howard's face drained of what little color it had left. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His eyes, finally meeting mine, were filled with fear. Derek's voice exploded through the silence. "No what? What are you talking about? Are you seriously going to make a scene right now?" "Can't. You just accept that this is happening." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "I'm talking about the truth." "What truth? Stop being dramatic." I tapped my phone screen, found the recording, and pressed play. Derek's voice filled the room, tinny but clear. "Once we get the properties, Dad and Mom can go into that facility. We'll have enough money to never work again. Penny's been cut out completely, just like we planned. She'll never see it coming. Courtney's voice followed, laughing. Your sister is so naive. She actually thinks they love her. Then Derek again. Mallory says the documents are solid. Even if Penny tries to challenge them, it'll take years in court. And by then, we'll have already sold everything and spent the money. She can't touch us. The champagne glass slipped from Courtney's hand and shattered on the hardwood floor. The sound was shockingly loud in the frozen silence. My mother gasped, her hand going to her mouth. My father's face crumpled. Tears started rolling down his cheeks. Derek's face went through several color changes. Red, then pale, then red again. That's illegal, he shouted. You can't record private conversations. That's invasion of privacy. Aunt Rachel stood up. Actually, Derek, in Florida, one-party consent is legal. If Penny is part of the conversation or in a place where she has a legal right to be, she can record. And I'm here as a witness to what we all just heard. Mallory, the lawyer, was already gathering his papers. His face panicked. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I should go. Sit down, a voice said from the doorway. We all turned. Marcus Sullivan stood there, briefcase in hand, looking every inch the competent attorney. I'm Marcus Sullivan, attorney for Penny Howard, and no one is going anywhere until we sort this out. Derek lunged toward me, trying to grab my phone. Give me that! You have no right! Aunt Rachel stepped between us, her hand up. Touch her and I'll have you arrested for assault. This is insane, Courtney shrieked. That recording is fake. She probably edited it. It's not fake, I said calmly. And I have the original metadata to prove it, along with several other recordings. And documents. And witness statements. Marcus moved into the room, setting his briefcase on the table. Mr. and Mrs. Howard, I need to ask you both some questions. Do you clearly understand what you're signing today? Have you been under any pressure to make these decisions? My mother looked absolutely bewildered. I thought Penny was getting the house in Orlando. Wasn't she? Howard, didn't we say that? My father was crying openly now, his shoulders shaking. I'm so confused. Derek said Penny didn't want any of it. He said she told him she was too busy. He said she wanted us in a care facility. I knelt down beside my father's chair. Dad, I never said any of that. I love you. I love Mom. I've been helping you both every single week for 7 years. I would never want you in a facility unless it was absolutely necessary and it's what you wanted, but Derek said. Howard's voice broke. Derek lied. I pulled out my phone again, showing him photos. Look, this is me at the Tampa property 2 weeks ago, fixing the fence. This is me at the Orlando house last month, meeting with the plumber. These are text messages from tenants, thanking me for helping them. Dad, I've been there all along. You just didn't see it because Derek was telling you I wasn't. I looked at Aunt Rachel, and Aunt Rachel has been trying to call you for 6 months. Derek told her you didn't want to talk to her. Rachel nodded. He told me you were sick and didn't want to be bothered. I was worried sick about you, Howard. My father looked at Derek, his expression transforming from confusion to anger. You did this? You lied to me. Derek's mouth opened and closed. Dad, she's twisting everything. She's trying to manipulate you. Really? But Mallory was already gone, practically running to his car. The room fell into chaos. Courtney was crying and screaming. Derek was pacing, his hands in his hair. My mother looked terrified. My father just kept crying. And I had one more card to play. I let the chaos continue for a moment. Derek deserved to feel panicked. Then I spoke, my voice cutting through the noise. There's something else you all need to know. Derek spun toward me. What now? What other lies are you going to tell? Not lies. Facts. I pulled up another file on my phone. I have access to the rental property bank accounts. Dad added me as a co-signer 5 years ago for emergencies. Remember? My father nodded slowly. Yes, I forgot about that. I started noticing some irregularities about a year ago. Money was being withdrawn from the maintenance accounts. Significant amounts. The notation always said property maintenance. But when I checked with the actual contractors, the work was either never done or the amounts didn't match. Derek's face went pale. You're lying. Am I? I handed my phone to Marcus, who pulled up the information on his tablet to share with everyone. Over the past 14 months, $83,000 has been withdrawn from the property accounts, all of it noted as maintenance expenses. But I have statements from contractors saying the work was either never requested or the invoices were fraudulent. I looked directly at Derek. You've been stealing from Mom and Dad. That's not true, Courtney shrieked. Derek would never do that. Really? Because I have copies of fake invoices. And I have testimony from contractors who say Derek paid them to create false paperwork. Some of them felt guilty and came forward when I started asking questions. I pulled out printed documents from my purse. Harry's one, a bill for $15,000 to replace the roof on the Jacksonville property, but I called the roofing company. They never did that work. The invoice is fake. I laid out more papers on the table. Here's another one. $10,000 for plumbing repairs in Orlando. The plumber says Derek paid him $2,000 to create a fake invoice for $10,000. Derek pocketed the difference. My father's face was no longer confused. It was devastated. Derek, tell me this isn't true. Derek's mouth worked, but no sound came out. How could you? Howard's voice cracked. We're your parents. How could you steal from us? It's not stealing. Derek finally found his voice. It was loans. I was going to pay it back. The business was having cash flow problems, and I just needed temporary help. What business? I asked. You work at a furniture store. What cash flow problems? Courtney started crying harder. We have expenses. The house, the cars, the lifestyle we're supposed to maintain. Your parents have millions in property, and they're just sitting on it while we struggle. You struggle because you spend money you don't have, Aunt Rachel said coldly. That's not struggling. That's stupidity. Marcus stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Howard, the legal situation is clear. These estate documents were prepared under questionable circumstances by a lawyer with a disciplinary history. There's evidence of undue influence, isolation, and misrepresentation. And now there's evidence of theft. These documents are voidable. No. Derek grabbed the papers from the table. These are signed. They're legal. My father stood up, his legs shaky but his voice strong. Give me those papers. Dad, just listen to me. Give them to me, now. Derek handed them over, his hands shaking. Howard looked at the papers. Then, with more strength than I'd seen from him in months, he tore them in half. Then, in half again. And again. Get out of my house. Dad, please, just let me explain. You stole from us. You lied about your sister. You were planning to sell everything and put us in a facility. Howard's voice was ice cold. You manipulated your mother when she's sick and confused. You cut us off from my sister. And you were going to throw Penny away like she never mattered. Get out! Courtney was sobbing. But we need this money. We have debts. Then get a job, sell your fancy cars, downsize your house. I don't care. But you're not getting another cent from me. Derek's face contorted with rage and fear. You can't do this to me. I'm your son. A son doesn't do what you did. A son doesn't betray his family like this. Howard turned to me, his eyes red from crying. Penny, I'm so sorry. I was weak. I let him manipulate me. I thought I was losing my mind. I took his hand. You were scared and confused, Dad. Derek took advantage of that. But it's over now. We have rights, Derek shouted. We're not leaving. You can't just kick us out. Aunt Rachel pulled out her phone. Actually, you're trespassing now, and I'm calling the police. You can't do that. Watch me. She dialed. For a moment, I thought Derek might actually try to fight. His fists were clenched, his face red with fury. But Courtney grabbed his arm. Derek, we need to go. We need to call our lawyer. We don't have a lawyer. We used Mallory and he just abandoned us. Then, well, find one. But we can't be here when the police arrive. Derek looked around the room. At our father, standing firm despite his tears. At our mother, confused and frightened. At Aunt Rachel, phone to her ear. At Marcus, calmly documenting everything. And at me, standing beside my father. This isn't over? Derek said, his voice low and threatening. I'll fight this. I'll sue. You'll regret this, Penny. No, Derek. You'll regret it. Because now everyone knows what you are. He and Courtney grabbed their things and rushed out the door. Through the window, I watched them peel out of the driveway, tires screeching. The house was suddenly very quiet. Marcus cleared his throat. The police are on their way, but just for documentation. I'll explain the situation to them. In the meantime, we need to talk about what happens next. My father sank back into his chair. What have I done? How did I let this happen? I knelt beside him again. Dad, you didn't do anything wrong. Derek is very good at manipulation. He knew you were tired and worried about Mom. He exploited that. But I should have seen it. I should have known you would never abandon us. You were under enormous pressure. It's not your fault. My mother reached over and took my hand. Even in her confused state, she seemed to understand something important had happened. Penny's a good girl, she said softly. We should have listened to Penny. Aunt Rachel came over and hugged me tight. I'm so proud of you. That took incredible courage. Marcus sat down across from us. Mr. and Mrs. Howard, we need to talk about your estate planning. Clearly, the current documents are invalid, but we need to create new ones that truly reflect your wishes. And we need to address the theft. I don't want to press charges against my own son, Howard said weakly. Dad, he stole $83,000 from you. Has still, my son. I looked at Marcus, who nodded slightly. We can discuss that, but at minimum, the theft needs to be documented and Derek needs to make restitution. If he refuses, then pressing charges might be the only option to protect you. We spent the next 2 hours talking. The police came and took statements. Marcus explained the legal options. And slowly, my parents began to understand the full scope of what Derek had done. It was late evening when Marcus finally prepared to leave. I'll draft new estate documents based on what we discussed today. Well, schedule a meeting at my office when you've both had time to think everything through. After he left, it was just me, my parents, and Aunt Rachel. We sat in the living room, exhausted but relieved. Penny, my father said, there's something I need to tell you. What is it, Dad? A few months ago, before Derek's manipulation got really bad, I made a backup plan. I was already feeling uncomfortable with the way things were going. He stood up slowly. Wait here. He disappeared into his office and came back holding a large envelope. This is a copy of my original will. The one I made 3 years ago, before any of this started. I kept it in my safe deposit box. He handed it to me. Inside was a will dated 3 years earlier. I scanned through it quickly. It split everything equally between Derek and me. The properties would be held in a trust, managed jointly, and couldn't be sold for 10 years. It was fair, reasonable, and clearly made when my father was thinking clearly. Why did you change it? I asked. I didn't really want to. Derek kept pushing and pushing. The lawyer Mallory kept saying it was simpler to have everything go to one person. And Derek convinced me you didn't want the responsibility. He shook his head. I should have trusted my instincts, but I was tired and scared and I just wanted peace. It's okay, Dad. We can fix this. No. His voice was firm. After what happened today, after what Derek did, I can't give him an equal share. He stole from us. He manipulated us. He tried to destroy your relationship with us. What are you saying? I'm saying Derek's inheritance will be reduced by the amount he stole, plus he has to make full restitution, and if he doesn't, we press charges. That's non-negotiable. Howard looked at me with clear eyes. And you'll be the primary trustee of the properties, Penny. You'll manage them, receive a fair salary for your work, and the rental income will provide for your mother's care and my care as we age. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You've been there all along. You never asked for anything. You just helped because you loved us. He took my hand. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. I'm sorry I let Derek blind me to what was right in front of me. I hugged him tight, tears finally falling. I love you, Dad. Both of you. That's all that matters. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal activity, family drama, and slow healing. But through it all, justice began to take shape. 3 days after the disastrous inheritance meeting, Derek and Courtney showed up at my parents' house unannounced. I was there, helping my mother with lunch, when they walked in without knocking. We need to talk, Derek announced, as if nothing had happened. Get out, my father said from his recliner. I told you to leave. Dad, just hear me out. We can work this out like a family. Courtney chimed in, her voice pleading. We made some mistakes, but we're family. Family forgives. Aunt Rachel, who had extended her visit to help out, stood up. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie and manipulate. You two aren't acting like family. This is between us and our parents. Derek snapped. You have no say in this, Rachel. I have every say when I watch my brother being abused by his own son. Derek ignored her and turned to Howard. Dad, about the money. I was going to pay it back. I swear. The furniture store had some commission issues and I just needed to bridge a gap. I was always planning to return it. With what money? I asked. Your salary barely covers your house payment. That's none of your business. It is when you're stealing from our parents to fund your lifestyle. I didn't steal. It was a loan. Marcus, who Id called as soon as Derek arrived, walked in at that moment. Actually, Mr. Derek Howard, taking money from accounts you're not authorized to access, using fraudulent documentation, is embezzlement under Florida law. It's not a loan. It's theft. Derek's face went red. I'm not talking to you. You're her lawyer. I'm also filing a formal complaint with the state attorney's office on behalf of your parents, unless you agree to immediate restitution and certain conditions. What conditions? Courtney asked nervously. Marcus laid out a document. Full restitution of $83,000 within 90 days. We don't have that kind of money. Then you'll make payments, sell your luxury cars, downsize your house, get second jobs, figure it out. Howard's voice was harder than Id ever heard it. You stole from us. Now you pay it back. Derek looked at me with pure hatred. This is your fault. You turned them against me. No, Derek. You did this to yourself. He and Courtney left without signing anything. Marcus assured us they'd be back once reality set in. He was right. 2 weeks later, Derek's attorney called Marcus to negotiate. They couldn't afford criminal charges, couldn't afford the legal fees to fight, and couldn't afford the damage to Derek's reputation. They agreed to the restitution terms. Over the next month, Derek sold his Lexus, Courtney sold her BMW, and they listed their house for sale. They moved into a small rental apartment. Derek got a second job doing night shifts at a warehouse. Courtney, who'd never worked during their marriage, got a job at a retail store. The monthly restitution payments started arriving. $1,500 a month for 55 months, plus the initial lump sum of $10,000 they'd scraped together from selling their cars. Derek also signed the notarized statement admitting to the fraudulent invoices. Marcus filed it with the court and with the property records, creating a permanent legal record of what happened. As for the inheritance, Howard and Linda worked with Marcus to create a new estate plan. It was fair but reflected the reality of what had happened. The 8 properties would go into a family trust. I would be the trustee and manager, with a salary of $4,000 per month for my work. The rental income, after expenses and my salary, would go into a care fund for Howard and Linda's needs, especially Linda's increasing medical costs as her dementia progressed. Upon their deaths, the properties would transfer to me with one condition. Derek would receive a cash inheritance of $100,000, but only after he completed full restitution and attended family counseling for at least 1 year. It's more than he deserves, Howard said when we finalized the documents. But he's still my son. I can't completely cut him off, but I won't reward his behavior either. Dad, you don't have to give him anything. I know, but this way, he has a path back to the family if he truly changes. And if he doesn't, at least we tried. The most surprising change came from my mother. As her dementia progressed, she had more bad days than good days. But on her good days, she was fiercely protective of me. Penny is my good daughter, she told anyone who would listen. She's the one who stayed. Derek left us, but Penny stayed. It broke my heart every time she said it, because I could hear the guilt and regret in her voice. But it also healed something in me. The invisible daughter was finally seen. Aunt Rachel extended her stay for 2 months, helping to stabilize the household and provide support. She and I grew closer during that time, and she became a fierce advocate for my parents' well-being. You know what the saddest part is? She said to me one evening as we sat on the porch. Derek had everything. He was the golden child. All he had to do was be decent, be honest, and he would have inherited millions anyway, but his greed destroyed him. He destroyed himself. I said, I just exposed it. You saved your parents, Penny. Never forget that. 6 months after the inheritance meeting, Derek requested a supervised visit with our parents. Howard agreed, with me present. Derek looked different. Thinner, tired, older. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been shame. Dad, Mom, I'm sorry, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry for everything. Howard nodded but said nothing. I was greedy. I was stupid. I convinced myself I deserved everything because I was the oldest, because I'd always been told I was special. And I hurt you. I hurt Penny. I almost destroyed our family. You did destroy our family, I said quietly. What we have now is different. It can't ever be what it was. I know. Derek looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine remorse. I was jealous of you, Penny. You were always so independent, so capable. You never needed anyone, and I hated that about you because I needed everyone. I needed constant validation, and when I didn't get it, I took it. That's not an excuse. I know. There is no excuse. I just wanted you to know why. He turned back to our father. I'm paying back every cent. It's going to take years, but I'll do it. And I'm in counseling. Courtney and I are in marriage counseling too. We're trying to figure out if we can survive this. I hope you can, Howard said. But Derek, the trust I had in you is gone. I don't know if it can ever come back. I understand. After Derek left, my father sat quietly for a long time. Finally, he said, Do you think he meant it? I don't know, Dad. Time will tell. People can change, but they have to want to. And they have to do the work. Did I do this to him? By favoring him so much when you were both young. I thought about that question. Maybe partly. But Derek made his own choices. Hess an adult. Hess responsible for his actions. I have regrets, Penny. So many regrets. We all do, Dad. But we're here now. We're together. And we're building something better. 3 months have passed since that supervised visit with Derek. I'm sitting on the porch of the first rental property my parents ever bought. A modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet Tampa neighborhood. This is the house where I have my earliest memories of visiting with my dad, watching him fix a leaky faucet or mow the lawn. It always felt special to me. My father sits beside me in a comfortable chair I brought out here for occasions like this. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's peaceful in a way that our lives haven't been peaceful in a very long time. This was always my favorite property, Howard says softly. I remember buying it 32 years ago. Your mother and I were so nervous. It was our first real investment. I remember you bringing me here when I was little. You let me help paint the kitchen cabinets. He smiles. You got more paint on yourself than on the cabinets. But you were so determined to help. We sit in comfortable silence for a moment. Then he squeezes my hand. I'm proud of you, Penny. I should have said that more when you were growing up. Those words, the ones I waited my whole childhood to hear, finally arrive. And they heal something deep inside me that I didn't even realize was still wounded. Thank you, Dad. You saved us, you know. Not just from Derek's scheme, but from ourselves. We were so caught up in old patterns, old beliefs about who should get what and why. You showed us what really matters. I think about everything that's happened. The pain, the betrayal, the fear. But also the strength I discovered in myself. The power of documentation and patience. The importance of fighting for truth, even when it's hard. Derek is still making his restitution payments. Has down to $70,000 remaining. He attends his counseling sessions and sends monthly letters to our parents. Letters filled with apologies and updates on his progress. Howard reads them. I don't. I'm not ready yet, and I might never be. Courtney divorced him after 7 months. She couldn't handle the downgrade in lifestyle, couldn't forgive him for the lies, and ultimately decided she'd married the golden child, not the real person. Derek lives alone now, in a tiny apartment, working his 2 jobs, slowly rebuilding a life from the ruins he created. My mother's dementia has progressed, as we knew it would. She has more bad days than good days now. We've hired a full-time caregiver who comes during the day to help my father. The rental income from the properties easily covers the cost, along with all their other needs. On Linda's good days, she still tells people I'm her good daughter, and I sit with her, holding her hand, grateful for those moments of clarity. Aunt Rachel visits once a month without fail. She's become a cherished part of our lives again, a connection that Derek's manipulation temporarily severed but couldn't permanently destroy. The The properties are thriving under my management. I increased the rental income by 22% through strategic improvements and better tenant selection. I hired a part-time assistant to help with day-to-day issues, freeing me up to focus on the bigger picture. The work is challenging but fulfilling in ways my old job never was. I've also started building my own life more fully. I moved into a nicer apartment, started dating again, took a vacation for the first time in 3 years. Being visible to my parents somehow made me more visible to myself. The invisible daughter stepped into the light, and it turns out, she likes it there. Marcus Sullivan has become a trusted friend as well as our family attorney. He checks in regularly, helps navigate any legal issues, and has become something of a protective big brother figure. He recently told me he's using our case as a teaching example in his presentations about elder law and undue influence. With our permission, of course. The invisible daughter who saved her family, he calls it. It's a story about patience, documentation, and the power of truth. But it's also a story about family, dysfunction, and redemption. Not Derek's redemption, not yet anyway, but my parents' redemption, and mine. I learned so much through this experience. I learned that being underestimated can be an advantage. While Derek was busy being the golden child, I was quietly becoming competent, capable, and strong. I learned that love sometimes means letting people face the consequences of their choices, even when it hurts. Most importantly, I learned that inheritance isn't really about money or property. It's about values, integrity, and character. My brother wanted to inherit wealth, but what I inherited was so much more valuable. My parents restored trust, my own self-respect, and the knowledge that I'm capable of protecting the people I love, even from themselves. The legal documents say I'll inherit 8 rental properties worth millions of dollars someday. But the real inheritance I received was the truth about my family, about myself, and about what really matters. My father squeezes my hand again, pulling me back to the present moment. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. How we got here. Do you forgive me? For being blind for so long. I turn to look at him. His face is lined with age and worry, but his eyes are clear and honest. Dad, there's nothing to forgive. You were vulnerable and manipulated. You're human. You made mistakes, but you made them right when you had the chance. And Derek? Do you think you'll ever forgive him? I consider this carefully. Maybe someday. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting him back into a position where he can hurt anyone again. Right now, I'm focusing on protecting you and Mom and building something good from what was almost destroyed. That's wise. We watch the sunset together, father and daughter, sitting in the quiet peace that comes after a storm. The golden child lost everything by demanding it all. The invisible daughter gained everything by protecting what mattered most. And as the last light fades from the sky, I realize something profound. I spent so much of my life wanting to be seen, to be valued, to be the favorite. But the journey taught me something better. I don't need to be the favorite. I just need to be true to myself, to stand up for what's right, and to love the people who matter, even when they can't see me clearly. That's the inheritance that really counts. That's the legacy I'll carry forward. My father's voice interrupts my thoughts one more time. I love you, Penny. I should have said it more. I love you too, Dad. And in that moment, sitting on that porch as the stars begin to appear, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Complete peace. The invisible daughter is finally, truly seen, and she knows her worth. The story of how I saved my family isn't really about money or property or even justice, though those things played their parts. It's about refusing to be invisible anymore. It's about standing up with evidence and courage when everyone expects you to stay silent. It's about patience and strategy being more powerful than anger and confrontation. It's about knowing that sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what you receive, but what you protect. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning everything, but making sure the people you love are safe, even from their own worst decisions. Derek wanted all 8 houses in Florida. He got none of them, and he lost so much more. I wanted nothing except my parents' safety and well-being. I got that, and so much more. In the end, that's the lesson I carry forward. Greed destroys, but love protects. Manipulation fails, but truth prevails. And the child who appears invisible might actually be the one who sees everything. That's my story. That's my inheritance. And it's worth more than any property deed could ever represent. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever been underestimated by your family? Have you ever had to stand up for what's right, even when everyone expected you to stay quiet? How did you find the courage to be seen? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling to find their voice. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about family dynamics and the power of patience and truth, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real-life challenges and how people overcome them. And share this with someone who might need to hear that being invisible doesn't mean being powerless. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your worth isn't determined by how others see you, but by how you see yourself and what you're willing to fight for. May you always have the courage to protect what matters most, the wisdom to document your truth, and the strength to stand up when it counts. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time.